How much of a Bitcoin bull have you become?
I understood it almost immediately. Maybe I had the benefit of my colleague who has a computer science background, and he explained it to me in terms. He said, one, I think the blockchain itself is not going to be hacked. I think the security is going to be strong enough. And two, he said the supplies are going to be 21 million. So I said, well, based on supply and demand, the demand is likely to grow exponentially and supply is not going to grow exponentially. That's the correcting mechanism. The same with oil and gas is you limited supply, growing demand, you're going to correct it with the price. And so I said immediately, literally within 90 seconds, I said, I want in. As I studied it further, I realized the benefits that it could have and kind of the role of money in society. I become much more, I'm just hopeful. I'd give up any gains that I ever had in Bitcoin for it to succeed in society to get on that system.
Okay, that's a very interesting way to think about it, because I'm an investor like yourself in Bitcoin. I want it to succeed. But when I'm trying to explain to people, a lot of people, when I talk to them about it, most early people worry about, will I lose some money? Will I lose it? Have I got in at the right time? One of the things I'm trying to encourage is to people to think about, it's not just about the money you make, it's becoming part of something that will be better. Just buy a little bit and understand it and realize if you do it and your friends do it and your friends do it, and enough of us do it, with critical mass, we can create a system that's better and fairer. Have you spent much time thinking about the long-term implications of it becoming a dominant reserve currency?
I have, and I've thought about it, and I think it solves a lot of the world's problems. You take the money out of the hands, you put it onto a mathematical basis. It's much sounder. People can plan for that in a much more logical way, know that they're not going to be debased out of their wealth, et cetera. So I think it's an important invention. I think it truly is a real 0 to 1 moment. It's kind of the wheel. So I'm rooting for it in a way, and I think there's a lot of very powerful forces that are not aligned with that, that would love to see that go away. I think the benefit of time is probably with Bitcoin, because the younger generation is going to be more accepting of it. New politicians, more and more politicians are going to embrace it. It's becoming a voter bloc, et cetera. So
yeah, it's definite voter bloc. There's a real hack. I mean, how many politicians we had reach out to us?
It's probably double digits now.
Yeah. Now, we turn them pretty much all down now, but we've had, well, I say politicians, these are people running for either local, this is not understanding US politics too well, running for Congress or Senate.
Yeah.
And they've realized if they put Bitcoin in their description and they tweet about Bitcoin, they suddenly get, it's a bit of a hack. And they've asked to come on the show, but we don't have them because they always want to tell the same story. But then it can become a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. And one of the things I'm grateful for is Republicans at the moment, because Republicans seem to support this a bit better. And that's useful for Bitcoin. It gives a certain amount of regulatory protection, and I just hope it continues long enough to give it enough regulatory protection.
Yeah, you hope it's not going to be political. I mean, it seems to line up more with the libertarian type of view of the world.
Yeah.
But I don't think it needs to. I think it really has to do, if you study money and the way it can be debased and the way you can be cheated out of your efforts, I think whether you're on the left or the right, you'll say, you know what, this thing is worth looking into and worth owning some of.
Do a lot of people asking you about it?
Not as much as before. I continue to go around and tell people, that I meet, and, you should own a little bit. Our philosophy was that the asymmetric nature of it was so great that you didn't need to make a big bet initially. And you put 1 or 2% in it, and that 1 or 2% could basically hedge out really the risk of 99% of your other assets, and just leave it alone. And so I still tell that story. Now, personally, I have more exposure to that, and I've been in since 2015. So
that was a good time.
It's good. It's a good time, but it's again, I would happily give up any appreciation that I have or exposure to it for it to succeed, and basically to put a global standard, monetary standard based on Bitcoin. I'd be happy for that to happen.
And with Bitcoin, it's obviously at the moment quite closely tied to equities in terms of what it does with the price. Do you think that'll change and it'll become more tied to commodities over the next decade?
Yeah, I do. I think people that make the correlation issue is, it's correlated for 9 months, and that's a permanent feature. So it's not a permanent feature. I think it can change radically, and I think it's going to have its moment where it will uncorrelate and it will make your head spin. I think the only thing that we actually kind of slightly disagreed with the last time we spoke was you didn't think the dollar had collapsed against Bitcoin, and I said it had. And the reason I said that is, back when it was a penny,
Yeah.
and now it's 30,000, and obviously it was as high as 69,000. That to me is a collapse. So you're going to see it at some point, in my opinion, some point well into the many millions of dollars it's going to cost to buy a single Bitcoin at some point in the future.
Wow, that would be truly incredible. That would help me with my football club. And I'm guessing you don't really look at the other cryptocurrencies, right?
Not really. So again, I think Bitcoin is the wheel. The other 19,000 plus cryptocurrencies, it's just too many. I could spend my rest of my life and I wouldn't get my arms around most of them. And it's like what you said. They're meant to enrich a handful of people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bitcoin maxi. It's the only one I own. I don't mind this one called Monero. I'm kind of okay with that. I'm interested in that. We've got an interview with somebody regarding that soon because it has a different set of privacy trade-offs from Bitcoin, and I'm interested in that. I don't really understand Bitcoin privacy I know what it is, but I don't understand how to manage my privacy. But with something like Monero, it's really taken out of my hands. But there are, the other 19,000, 20,000, I just think it's all nonsense.
Yeah.
And I wish the money people were putting into that, they would put it into Bitcoin.
I think you're seeing with the shakeout that we've had more recently, I think more and more people are being converted because unfortunately they got hurt because they didn't fully understand what Bitcoin is and the monetary policy behind that. And if you can create an unlimited supply, why is that any different than Jerome Powell and the European Central Bank being able to print money at will? So the great thing about Bitcoin, it's finite and you're up against assets that are going to continue to expand. So at some point in dollar terms, in euro terms, in yen terms, Bitcoin is going to be priced at a much, much, much higher level.
Well, I take a different level of risk because something like 95% of my money's in Bitcoin. Where would Peter, if I wanted to divest out a little bit just to spread my risk a little bit, where would you tell me to put a bit of money?
Yeah, so I would be still very concerned about inflation, and you need to find those companies that are going to grow their cash flow faster than inflation. Our product, I'll give a little plug.
Please give it a plug.
INFL, it's an exchange-traded fund that it's going to be a nice hedge for it. So it's not a binary bet, and don't sit here and I'm all doom and gloom. If inflation subsided tomorrow, that fund will get you an adequate rate of return because the underlying companies themselves are going to. In an inflationary environment, you're likely to do extraordinarily well.
Is that ETF looking to outperform CPI, or is it looking to outperform the other number that you think you have in your head?
The other number that I'm thinking about, the M2 number.
So can I buy that from the UK?
Don't know, but we're likely to be starting a UCITS fund in the not too distant future that will be available to European investors.
Anything else? What about gold? Is gold something you think people should be having?
Not the miners. We have exposure to some of the royalty companies that's similar to characteristics that TPL has. So they buy a royalty stream in various mines, a company called Franco-Nevada that we've owned for a long period of time. It's been a great investment. I could see personally that gold could become demonetized as a result of the rise of Bitcoin.
Wow. Peter Schiff won't like that.
He may not like that. I don't know that it's going to entirely because there are uses where, in theory, the
industrial yields, yeah.
But the industrial is different than the monetary. I could see that, in times of real physical unrest, gold might be a pretty good option for people. So maybe it's never going to be demonetized completely. I would say oil and gas companies, particularly the Canadian ones that are still very attractive, trading at ridiculously generational low, cash flow multiples. I think they're going to do incredibly well. They'll outrun inflation. So, the exchanges that I mentioned also.
So if I was reading your newsletter regularly, I'd know all this.
You certainly would have been aware of inflation and it's coming in with a vengeance, we would have been made that call for you. And it's, in our opinion, it's not only not transitory, it's here, and it could, in theory, get much, much worse. And I'm an optimistic guy.
What are you optimistic about? You can't say Bitcoin. We've covered that.
I'm optimistic that we'll end up, navigating this. I think cryptocurrency, in the sense that there's now this new technology that is a 0 to 1 moment. There's a real option there to change the way the world operates and functions for the better. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back to Bitcoin on that. So I'm optimistic about that. And I think longer term, the availability of information is making society better. It has its fits and starts, and I think people basically can ferret out information better than they ever could. And I think that governments around the world can't quite keep up the clandestine operations that they have without being exposed. And I think more and more people are waking up to that.